this is Steph speaking, Steph Skupin, and this is the second class that I'm offering in the Zen Vet Med Facebook group. Just a free short class on how to flow with emotion, especially if you're working in such a challenging career as veterinary medicine, where, you know, emotions are triggered often, and strong emotions are triggered often, and we need to learn ways of flowing with it rather than trying to bottle it down, because if that's what we do, then eventually something will explode or we will implode. That's another way of doing it. So my name is Stephanie Skupin. I used to work as a veterinarian for many years, and now I have my own business, The Leader's Work, and I use facilitation, a process called the work of Baranketi, and some coaching tools to help other people make sense of the challenging situations that are happening in our lives and grow through them and beyond them. So today what we're going to look at is we're going to talk about what are emotions, like how do we get triggered. We're going to do little exercises on getting familiar with more emotions, and to move from naming them to feeling them, and just look at a quick inquiry of the work to go through how can I learn from my emotions. And then at the end, I'm just going to share just a couple of suggestions, like if you find yourself trapped in a strong emotion, how can you ground yourself and get back to being in control of your situation. So working as a veterinarian, as you can think, has brought out for me some of the strongest emotions in my life, you know, other than early relationships and being with my children. So in the first few years, there was a baseline anxiety, because it felt like for a long time, it felt like I could never be sure about what was coming into the door and whether I will be able to cope with it, right? Then there was panic when I was faced with emergencies. There was resentment that happened when, you know, somebody else goes home and I have to stay, or if I'm planning to be away on the weekend and then Friday afternoon, out of a sudden, like there's emergency after emergency coming in, and I don't get to go anywhere for the whole weekend. And of course, there was a lot of positive feeling as well, the satisfaction of being able to use what I know. You know, empathy, showing empathy and compassion can be such a gift for yourself if you can do that. Obviously feeling the love for and of the animals and the clients, and the feeling the gratitude for and appreciation for the support and the teachings that I got from staff and bosses. And so, like, you can of course argue that not all of those are emotion in the strictest sense. So what I'm wanting to talk here mostly is about how do we deal with the constantly changing, shifting feeling levels that we are experiencing. So what I'm talking about is emotion as in an energy in motion, because that's really what they are. They're like sensations that are caused by charges of electrical currents running through our bodies, and so those currents create sensation. And just like electrical currents flow, in that same way flow our emotions, come in and then like go through the body and then flow out again. So a basic pattern for how we operate is generally we have a thought about a situation, a judgment of something happening, and that judgment, we take that judgment as true, and that judgment triggers an emotion in the body. appropriate emotion, to the thought. And then out of that, we decide on an action. So what I'm calling an action here is anything from like how we express our face in that moment, even though that is not a conscious action for most of us, to what our heart rate feels like, what our breathing rhythm is, to what we actually decide to say and do in that moment. Like, so all of those are like action. It's an expression of the emotion and the thought on the physical plane. And so then that action gets us a feedback, is seen by somebody else, and that gets feedback, which a lot of the time proves to us that our initial assessment of the situation was correct. And so we create more thoughts along the same level, creating stronger emotions along the same level, and continuing to act in the same way. So in that way, it's almost like a closed feedback loop, because even though some of the feedback comes from outside, a lot of the feedback is actually happening inside of us and not actually depending on what we see, but rather on our interpretation of what we see coming back at us. So obviously a basic action is also, that fight and flight and freeze response, and which is like a very quick triggered action. Whereas when we're more in control, the action would be something more complex, as in scheduling a meeting to, I'm working, my darling, you have to go down right now. Where is I going? Just from a basic flight and flight freeze. So, or you could have a more complex action coming up to the emotion, as in taking the cat and putting it back on the floor. Or, if you have somebody who you're talking to, a complex action at work. Now he's like really taken me out of my stride. The complex action at work would, for example, be you're having an argument with staff and you could freeze because of it, or you could, with a complex action, make a decision, ask them to talk about it at a place where you both have room and time to sit down for it, and ask to make that plan for it. When we ruminate over something that happened, and this could just be like 10 minutes or so, that kind of a emotion gets stuck in the body. So most of our emotions flow through the body fairly quickly. If we can just see them, notice them, allow them to be, and allow the sensation to continue on its merry way, then emotions move actually through the body within minutes. So the bigger emotions like happiness and anger will stick around for, maybe 10 or 20 minutes at the most, but most emotional states flow through really quickly. If you're able to hang on and just experience them without starting to create this attachment of, I'm right to feel like this right now. That's when you create more thoughts along the same lines, and that emotion continues to stay in the body. So some of the emotions that we feel, we can let go of fairly quickly. Like, for example, if a door slams behind you, you can get a fright. And then you can actually notice the tension out of the body dissipate really fairly quickly. You can just feel it leaving, unless you have some sort of post-traumatic stress disorder, in which case that slam would create all kinds of other stories that it would attach to, that would make the emotion, that the fear that was coming up there stick around for much longer, because now it dives into memories of the much bigger shock that was there some time ago. Often when we're faced with situations that are difficult for us, like agreement with staff or with clients, disagreement, sorry, with staff or with clients, then we create a story that goes with the emotion, and we keep running that story in our heads over and over. Most of the time we also start talking to other people about it. They will probably say, yes, you're right. And so these emotions get entrenched in our body, and they stick around for much longer in that way than we needed them to. So depending on how well we are able to allow our emotions, but also allow them to move on, depends, on our early life experience, on childhood, on what our parents showed us, what our social environment was like, and how the people there were able to deal with negative and positive emotions, and what we've learned in that way. That will impact on how well we are today, allowing ourselves to feel the whole breadth of emotions that we can feel, and also not getting overwhelmed by them. So triggers are subconscious memories that are connected to an emotionally very challenging situation from when we were very young. And so if that happens, the resulting emotions obviously are a lot stronger, and often stronger than what we could logically see as appropriate in that situation. But we don't really have a way, unless we kind of do work like this, what we're doing here today on a regular basis, we don't really have a way of stepping aside from the trigger and watching as logically, and allowing us to go away. So if we're not at peace with that original situation, then what we will do to control what's going on is suppress this emotion and suppress what's happening. And so if we do that, eventually it will burst out again and come up. Emotional intelligence, as I said, means that you are able to define and feel in your body a whole range of emotion, and that you're able to identify it in yourself, and that you are able to feel it without getting overwhelmed by it. And so we have, we know, most of us know a fair amount of a baseline of basic emotion, like angry, depressed, confused, helpless, indifferent, afraid, hurt, sad. And then positive emotions: open, loving, happy, interested, positive, peaceful. But there is a ton of emotions. There is nuances of emotions. Like if you look at this emotion sheet, just check out how many emotions there are. And I'm seeing now that you're going to see this sheet in a mirror image. Okay, so if you see the video and you would like to have the sheet, just drop me a line and I will make sure that I can get it to you. But my point being, most of us stay on the surface level of really pinpointing what it is that we're feeling. And there is a depth and richness to our emotional landscape that we can access when we start to work with our emotions. Emotional intelligence is specifically reflected in very good social skills. If we can identify our emotions and others well, we can respond to others and to ourselves with empathy and compassion. And that is really, really worthwhile if we want to get along well with all kinds of different people. So especially as doctors and technicians who on a daily basis meet a lot of different people, it's a really worthy skill to have that emotional intelligence. Okay, so how can we use the emotions for our own benefit? So what emotion is an information about my internal state. It is telling me something about how I feel in the moment. And it is the second step behind a judgment. So the feeling is giving me information about what I was judging, how I was interpreting a situation in that moment just before. So it's like it gives me information about myself. What information does not do is give me information about somebody else or about a situation. That would be intuition. Intuition can definitely give you good information, but make sure to know the difference between feeling an emotional distrust and feeling an intuitive knowledge that something isn't good for you. And so the intuitive knowledge is much calmer. It feels like just a quiet inner knowing that this is not something I need to do, or this is something I need to do. Whereas an emotion of distrust, frustration, or fear is very disquieting. And that is not intuition. That's just telling you something about your own judgment of a situation, and those judgments might not always be correct. So let's start with getting familiar with the variety of emotions. And so what I would like you to do is take a piece of paper and a pen, or open a doc on your computer, whichever one you prefer, and make a list of as many emotions as you can think of. And don't get sidetracked with like, well, this isn't, strictly speaking, this isn't actually an emotion. Just start doing that. Just go write the list. Angry, sad, fearful, whatever it is, and see how many more you can find, like frustrated, overjoyed. And if you are watching this recording, this is a very good place to just pause the recording for a moment and allow yourself to make that list. Okay, so you made your list. So coming back here, now what you can do is learn to name those emotions as they arise in the moment. So going back to your list, maybe just pick 2 of those emotions, and one at a time, remember a moment when you felt that emotion, and then notice how that emotion feels in your body. Where does it sit? Like, for example, grief, a lot of the time you will find in your heart, in the lungs. The lungs in Chinese medicine are the organs of grief. And you will find grief going into your throat, making you want to cry, make your eyes burn. That could be one. And then happiness, happiness can just be like a serene, peaceful energy that incorporates the whole body. So once again, I invite you to pause, your recording and just sit for a moment. Just take a minute or two to get familiar with those emotions in your body. So remember a situation and when you experience that emotion, and allow yourself to experience it again now. So a really good thing, so hello back, I assume you're back now. A really good thing to where you can use this, like knowing how to name your emotion, is in the moment when you are feeling upset, you can say something like, I am feeling angry. I am feeling frustrated. So that allows you, A, to communicate accurately to the person in front of you what you are feeling. It also allows you to mentally take a step away from being the emotion. So instead of saying, I am angry, you can say, I feel anger. And so that really allows you to just step away and go, whoa, okay, it's not all of me. There is a little piece here that was able to sidestep the anger and call it this and say, this is what is feeling, what the body is feeling right now. This is anger. And then what we're going to do is, okay, what did I say here? All right, so then the next step in learning to get good at emotional intelligence, or to develop emotional intelligence, is to really get used to feeling your emotions as they come whenever you can. And it's not always possible. There is definitely times in your day when it's not appropriate to stop and, sit down for 5 minutes and feel. At the same time, if we, like, generally, what we don't like to feel bad, or uncomfortable, or unbalanced. So a lot of the time we will try and push this emotion away if it's feeling bad. If we do that a lot, then over time, this acts like heating up a pressure cooker without the pressure relief valve open. So the pressure inside will build up too high, and eventually we will explode or implode. If you're an introvert, you might potentially rather implode. The mechanism, however, is the same. So if we're taking our time to feel, then we're learning that the emotion itself is actually just a sensation in the body. Fear of a thing doesn't mean we're in danger. It can mean that, but most of the time it actually doesn't. And so if we're learning to feel the sensation of these emotions in our body, they become less frightening. They're also less confusing. And so we develop a much higher level of control over them. They still come and go without us being able to allow that, to control that. I can't go like, oh, now I'm going to feel happy. Oh, now I'm going to feel angry. No, it doesn't work like that, of course. But what can happen is, oh, I'm feeling anger right now. Let me step outside, take a couple of deep breaths, and just allow myself to feel it. And if I don't continue in my head about the story of why I'm angry right now, then it actually can move on quite quickly. And I'm not expecting you to be able to do that right away, but with practice, this will definitely work. Okay. So the third step that I want to talk with you is understanding how and why we get triggered or we get overwhelmed by particular emotions. And those are often the emotions that we push away and we keep going like, ah, it's nothing worth worrying about. I know it's not that important. I'll just let it go. But actually what happens is it keeps coming back. The situation keeps reoccurring and we hang on to it much longer than we should. And we can see intellectually that it doesn't warrant that, but nevertheless, it keeps coming back to haunt us. So at that point, there is something here that it's worth looking at for us. So for example, so that's when you can use inquiry, which is, the main process that I use with all my clients, the work of Byron Katie, or it's called inquiry. You can use it to look at the thought and the emotion together and see how much of it, what it does in your life, how much of it is actually true for you, and what are the gifts in this? What is it that's happening here that I'm not seeing? And once I see it, this emotion will be able to walk through much easier. So for example, like I'll give you an example. I'll run through an example for you. That happened many, many years ago in a client when I didn't respond to an emergency call over the weekend. And the client was able to and meant to go to the after hours clinic, but she also had my phone number and she phoned me. And I didn't respond to her calls over the weekend. And so when she came in on Monday morning, she was livid and she verbally let me know all about it. So I feel shaken. So obviously I was feeling really shaken. I was scared. And the reason in my mind at the time was she's attacking me. So the thought is she's attacking me. And it's causing the internal shaking, the fear of that emotion. And so when I go back so that's the start of inquiry. And so now when I go back to that moment in my mind and I can ask myself, she's attacking me right now. Is that true? And that's the first question of inquiry. Is that true? And so yes, like she's standing there shouting at me. Yes, this is true. And my reaction to it is entirely appropriate. And then the second question of inquiry is, can I know absolutely that this is true? She's attacking me. And so this invites me to look more closely. And, can I absolutely know that it's true? She's attacking me? And my answer would be no. And your answer might still be yes. And so if you have a situation by now, like it's a situation that's coming up in your mind, I invite you to just go along with your situation or just follow mine. So she's attacking me. And then the third question is, how do I react? What happens when I believe the thought she's attacking me and I'm standing in front of her while she's shouting at me? So my face closes down. My body feels weak and shivery. My breathing will almost stop. My throat will close down. I will hold myself fairly stiffly. I might try and interject to what she's saying. I might try and interject quietly at first, and then if she's not stopping, I might get angry. I might start to be accusatory. I have a ball in my stomach. And first I feel a lot of fear, and then I feel guilt, shame, like, yeah, she's right. I didn't call her. It's true. Maybe I should have. And then I will feel, in response to this, I will feel angry. And I might turn around and tell her she's totally out of line. So this is what's happening. And then the fourth question of inquiry is, who would I be in that same situation without the thought that she's attacking me? And so this often is a difficult question for people, because it takes a little bit of practice to just put yourself into the same situation without the judgments that you've been having about it for many, many years often. So, but for me, what happens if I put myself into that same situation without the thought that she's attacking me? I see a client who's angry. I can listen. What happened to her? She's angry because she felt alone. She felt lonely over the weekend. She thinks I've done something wrong. She doesn't have another way of dealing with this. She needs to let this out. It's eating her alive. I can assume that probably she had to pay a lot of money. The dog is still in the emergency room. That's going to be costly. That's going to add to her anger, to her fear. And she's seeing me as the person who's responsible for this. So now I can argue again, well, but I shouldn't be in blah, blah. This is all not my problem. But taking it away, if I don't have those thoughts and I just look at her, this is how I see her. And if I don't feel attacked, then I can now start to take her in my room and say, I'm so sorry this has happened. I'm not answering my phones on the weekend. I can see how angry you must feel. I can start to affirm her. I can start to mirror her back. And my body is going to feel stronger. My face is going to feel softer. My breathing is going to feel better. I feel more in control. Also, I see clearly that, no, my decision to not answer my phone on the weekend is legit. It's fine. And yes, I can see how that can be really frustrating to somebody who would like to be able to get me. I get that. So you see, this is a way of diving into that emotion and into the thought and looking at what happened. And in the process, letting go of some of its stress. So then you turn the thinking around. So she's attacking me would turn into its opposite. She's not attacking me. And how would that be true? Well, it's true in the way that she's way standing over there. She's not coming at me. She's not hitting me. And again, you can argue, well, but she's emotionally attacking me. But what you're wanting to find to diffuse the stress for yourself is, what are the ways that she's not attacking me right now? And these are the ways she's not hitting me. She's not coming at me. She's not making threats. She's not attacking me in all of those ways. While my body is responding to as if it's a physical threat. And then you can turn it around also to yourself, which means I'm attacking myself. And that happens because, first of all, I'm feeling guilt. I'm thinking, oh, maybe I should have. And then I am judging myself to be in danger. Like my body is telling me that I think I'm in actual danger right now. Whereas looking at the situation objectively, I'm not. And then I can turn it to her, and that would mean that would turn around into I'm attacking her. And if I'm standing there for long enough without making sense of it, feeling threatened, I will most likely turn around and attack her and tell her she's out of line and she might just like leave the practice and I don't ever want to see her again. And even if I don't say these things out loud, I might well say them in my mind. So I'm attacking her in that way because I was feeling attacked. So this is inquiry. This is how you look at your emotions and the thinking that precedes them. And you start to make sense of what's happening. And then next time something like this happens, you have a way bigger understanding of why things are happening and what are you thinking. And you're way more aware of yourself. And so as a result, you have many more options of how to respond. So, of course, doing the inquiry in the moment, mostly not possible. So you have to do that after work and in your free time, like in the moment when you're not confronted with an emotion. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But if the emotion gets too overwhelming in that moment, it's always good to have some exit strategies from that situation. One of them would be to step outside, remove yourself. Another is to breathe, connect with your body, and, like honestly breathe, following the sensation of the breath into your body until you can feel your body again. Connecting to the ground and connecting to objects. So like even rubbing your hands together, knowing that these are hands. It takes you out of that mental circular thing of like, oh, I'm attacked, I'm feeling threatened, this is what's happening, I'm attacked, I'm feeling threatened, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And then you go, hands, hands. These are my hands. This is the chair. So this takes you just out of your mental rut, brings you here. This is what's happening right now. Now I can look at it more objectively again. If you have a regular breathing practice, like the hummingbird breath, for example, there's many others as well, then your body is used to that breathing, meaning you calming down. So then if in a situation like that, you would just start that breathing, your body goes like, oh yeah, I know what that does, and you will slow right down. If you don't have a breathing practice, then it will take you a lot longer to get the sympathetic nervous system down and the parasympathetic nervous system back up. Okay, so coming back to doing the inquiry, to me, this is really the biggest, most effective method of questioning those situations, of getting in touch with your emotions and understanding what's happening for you in those moments, and why those situations come up for you and what they are there to teach you. And so, as I said, this is a longer process and you won't be able to do that right in the moment there. So you'll have to do that in your free time. And this is where the work I do comes in. This is a process that I take all my clients to and through. And a lot of them have fabulous results, saying that they're experiencing more healing than they have before in their lives. And so the next class, so if you're interested in working with me, go on the website, theleaderswork.com, and have a look at the packages that I'm offering, or contact me, send me an email and book a call, and we'll talk about what you want out of it and whether this is a good fit. Or the next class that I have coming up is called Love Your Jerk. So I'm running that again this year. And it's a class over 2 Saturdays where we're really diving into learning inquiry and sharing it in a small group. And you get to use it in relation to some of your challenging work situations, so that by the end of those 2 Saturdays, you should have a really good handle on how to use the process for yourself. And also hopefully have shifted at least, one of your recurring situations to a point of it just not being that stressful anymore. So yeah, that's all I have for today. I hope this has been a little bit helpful, and hope to see you in class or maybe hear from you, and let's talk about what we can do, what I can do further to help you develop your emotional intelligence and your calm and peaceful nature. That is so much nicer to be in than stress.